The wolves in the church keep getting exposed. Yesterday, breaking news came out that Michael Tait, who was a frontman and lead singer for a Christian band called DC Talk, which was huge back when I was a kid, back in the 90s, DC Talk was massive. He also became the frontman and lead singer of another Christian band that was huge when I was a kid, and they were still around up until a few years ago, the Newsboys. Michael Tait, the frontman for these two bands, has been alleged to have abused victims while they were asleep. Does this remind you of anything that we've recently covered that has now gone to the FBI? The Murad Muhammad Invasion Global case where he was molesting kids while they were asleep? Well, Michael Tait has done the same exact thing. Julie Roys has concluded a 2.5-year investigation with over 50 sources interviewed who are testifying to what Michael Tait has done to them. We're going to cover it tonight. This stuff needs to be shouted on the mountaintops. These are leaders within the Christian space. They are the ones who are leading worship, who are supposed to be ushering people into the presence of God, who are supposed to be creating an environment that allows the Holy Spirit to draw people to the Father, and yet behind the scenes, what are they doing? They're getting drunk, they're using cocaine, and they are molesting the people of God who just want more of Him, and all they want is more of the flesh. It's disgusting, but I'm going to break that story here on this channel and amplify what Julie Roys has uncovered. Hey guys, I'm Shane Winnings. I aim to give a biblical worldview of a world that's not so biblical. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to jump right into this article from Julie Roys. Again, she has done a lengthy report. Former Newsboys frontman Michael Tait accused of sexual assault, grooming, and substance abuse dating back to 2004. Note, this article contains descriptions of predatory grooming and SA. So just a trigger warning there. I know that some of you who follow my channel have been a victim of this yourself, or you just don't do well with hearing this kind of stuff. So just keep that in mind as we are reading this tonight. It's been called Nashville's worst kept secret for decades. Allegations have circulated that Newsboys frontman Michael Tait, formerly of DC Talk, had groomed and SA'd numerous victims. And after a 2.5-year investigation by the Roys Report, which included interviewing more than 50 sources, they have documented his alleged predatory pattern with stories dating back more than 2 decades. They've also corroborated allegations of Tait's alcohol and substance abuse with multiple sources. 3 men spoke to the Roys Report alleging that Tait befriended them individually on Christian music tours in 2004, 2010, and 2014. They were all 22 years old at the time. 2 men stated they were drinking alcohol with Tait and later woke to find him fondling their genitals. One alleged that Tait also offered him cocaine while on the Newsboys tour bus. The third told the Roys Report that Tait gave him a back massage while skinny dipping and later invited him to share his king-sized bed. There, Tait allegedly non-consensually massaged his anal region. Now, I just want to pause right there for a minute because this is sickening. But I have to say this because what we're going to read and what I covered with the Murad Muhammad situation and what you heard from the victims themselves is that because of the in the case of Murad Muhammad, there was a very strong aspect of spiritual manipulation and abuse, right? Because he was a self-proclaimed prophet because there were some fruits of his ministry. Sometimes, he would give an accurate word. He seemed knowledgeable to these young victims who were pretty immature in their faith. There was an added element of, somewhat of a submission to his authority, even in some of these areas that for us from the outside looking in, we're like, why on earth would you ever do that? For me personally, as a man, I will never let another guy massage me. Not going to happen. Even when I was in high school or when I was in college, like if another guy started to give me a massage, I mean, honestly, we would be like, dude, are you gay? Like, stop touching me. That is so gay. And like, say what you will about that, but that was the mentality that we had of like, bro, do not touch me. That's weird. Like, why would you? And if someone can continue doing it, it would go from like, bro, are you whatever, to like, hey, stop. Like, what are you doing? This is weird. But unfortunately, because as you will hear, this was the culture, guys were more inclined to give in to it because of everything that was going on. And so I pray, the reason I'm covering this, and besides preaching and teaching and evangelizing and sharing the gospel and all these other things that we do on this channel, I've found like my lane is going to be exposing sexual predators within the church, because it needs to be exposed. It needs to be shouted. It needs to be dealt with. It cannot fall through the cracks or be swept under the rug. The reason I'm doing this is I pray. I think about, I help lead a high school boys Bible study on Tuesday nights, and there's anywhere from 40 to 60 kids cramming in a living room. I mean, it's amazing. All high school boys. And they're awesome, and they want to know God, and we're walking through the scriptures with 4 or 5 other leaders who are dads, who are businessmen, who are whatever. And I think about these guys going off to college or going off and doing all these amazing things and coming under the influence of someone who is like a world touring Christian worship artist, right? Or someone who's a prophet, and they see some of the fruit, and so they're brought into this, and then they themselves become victims. Like, that would break my heart. And also, it would infuriate me. And I'm like, if I can just help one young person see this and not fall into the trap of like just going along with it because everyone else does, it will be worth it. And so that's kind of my disclaimer of why I'm so passionate about this and why I pray that people will heed the warnings that I give and just see, like, just take a step back and see this stuff can be avoided. These guys cannot be encouraged any longer. They can't be empowered any longer. And that goes for, stop listening to their music, speak out against them, like say something. We have to let predators know that they are unwelcome. I love what I heard the other day. We have to create a hostile environment for predators and a safe environment for victims. Predators should feel like they're in hostile territory when they're around us, and they won't be able to continue preying on these innocent young people. Let's continue. Tait's music career has been nothing short of spectacular, starting with the band DC Talk, winning 4 Grammys before their hiatus in 2001. Tait, along with fellow Liberty University alumni Toby Mack and Kevin Smith, made history in contemporary Christian music. I just got off of an interview with Liberty University. I love them. I love some of my friends who are on staff over there. And Liberty's a great school. In their 2019 book, Jesus Freak, Will Stockton and Dee Gilson called the band nothing less than the Beatles of Christian music. I'm just going to skip down a little bit so we can get into Tait's story. Tait began looking toward the Newsboys, a band founded by former lead singer Peter Furler and George Perdikis in Mooloolaba, Australia in 1985. The band found success after moving to Nashville in 1991, releasing 14 studio albums and receiving 4 Grammy nominations before Furler stepped down in 2009. Tait then became the lead singer for Newsboys. It's not an exaggeration to say that for many evangelical teens who came of age in the 90s, the Newsboys were a core part of their evangelical Christian experience. And if you guys remember, like, Newsboys was massive. I mean, I remember because I was getting into drumming. I was a young kid in the 90s, and they had the drum set that like spun, and it would spin, and then it would like turn on its side, and it would spin, and sometimes it would turn almost upside down, and he would keep drumming, and it was just like, it was so cool. Newsboys were it, man. They reformed in some ways as an ongoing supergroup, most notably recruiting Michael Tait, who was 1/3 of DC Talk. They really had a second life that sort of gives voice to American conservatism. And, here you see Michael Tait right here. He's in the room with some other people praying for President Trump. And that just goes to show you, it doesn't matter who is with who. You might see him with the president go, oh my gosh, listen, after being in these spheres and being in these rooms with the president and with all these other important people, I see that it is so easy for God to just open a door, and it's not always because you're doing the right thing. God can open. Look at Pharaoh. Pharaoh was put in a position of power because God intended to crush him and make an example out of him because he would not let the Israelites go. So I'm just saying, just because someone is in that high up position, it doesn't impress me, right? I'm impressed by people's character. So if I see a picture of someone with the president or world leaders, I'm not impressed, because that is not an affirmation of your lifestyle. And clearly, we see this guy is doing horrific things to people behind the scenes. This picture means nothing to me. During Tait's time with the band, the Newsboys would score 4 #1 albums on the Billboard Christian charts, including God's Not Dead. You guys remember that? God's Not Dead. And then there was a film as well. Grossed $64 million internationally. Pretty successful. Okay, let's start getting into it. Although there had been rumors of misconduct, Tait and his network's influence and the ability to blackball people from the industry have squelched them, sources say. The tide shifted in January 15th when TikTok influencer Azariah Southworth, who famously outed journalist Jonathan Merritt, said in a video reel that Tait is gay. It was removed after getting 250,000 views for violent extremism. I think that's pretty interesting. Let's keep going. The following day, after this TikTok video, Tait announced he was stepping down. In a statement posted on Newsboys' social media, Tait stated that stepping down was a shock even to myself, but amidst prayer and fasting, I have clarity that this is the right decision. Okay, let's keep going. In September of 2010, 22-year-old Stephen, who asked to remain anonymous, was living the dream. These are people who have spoken directly to Julie Roys. Stephen is not their real name. As a touring musician for the Chris Sly Band, he walked onto festival stages every night and played guitar to crowds of screaming teenagers. Growing up in a conservative Christian family with missionary parents, this was surreal. I was a huge DC Talk fan, and Tait was just kind of like a weird idol, he said. As a kid, Stephen had played DC Talk's Jesus Freak on repeat. I had that CD. I had the book as well, which had a bunch of stories of Christian martyrs. I remember reading that as a young kid, and I'm just like, wow, martyrdom really happens. Also, incredible stories happened, and I, read about God's power. But I remember that we got that book and the CD, Jesus Freak, from DC Talk. And it's wild to me to think 30 years later, I would be making this video about the lead singer. When the Chris Sly Band was offered a slot opening for the Newsboys with Tait as lead singer, Stephen was in awe. But things took a turn when Tait seemed to take a special interest in him. Lead singer Chris Sly recounted to the Roys Report the moment Tait first saw Stephen, saying he was intensely focused on the 22-year-old while their band played on stage before a Newsboys set. Most of the time, big stars do not hang around and watch the opener show. I remember sort of being peeved that Tait cared more about my bandmate than he cared about me. And then it slowly evolved into something that I felt was weird. There's that discernment right there. Initially, Stephen and Tait met briefly backstage during a pre-concert prayer led by Tait. After the tour ended, Stephen worked as a clerk at a store in Brentwood, a suburb 10 miles south of Nashville. It was there he encountered his childhood idol again 2 months later. This time, Tait gave him his phone number. It started out that we were friends, Stephen said. We went to a movie. He picked me up. Then we would usually just play darts at this bar in Nipper's Corner. And that's them. Obviously, he's wanting to stay anonymous right now, so his face is blurred out. Stephen wasn't fazed by the 21-year age gap between him and Tait. You know, I just think about this. I can understand maybe in the beginning, you know, big idol, someone you look up to. He's 43, you're 22, he wants to hang out. And so you're like, sure, like this is cool. You know, I get to hang out with someone I really looked up to. Maybe he's going to mentor me or speak into me or something like that. So nothing too weird right off the bat. But Sly, who was both his bandmate and housemate, was acutely aware of it. So his friend was experiencing some type of red flags right off the bat. He says it felt like a weird attraction sort of thing. They were texting all the time. They got really close really fast. It was just love bombing. Tait was pouring it on to Stephen in really interesting and kind of gross ways looking back. He would call Stephen last minute, take him to steakhouses and pay for the meal, and get him very expensive shots of alcohol. Again, I just want to make this statement. Like, yes, drinking is not a sin, but what kind of worship leader is going to call up a young guy, 22 years old, who's also another Christian band member, and buy them shots? Like, do you think? Let me know in the chat, okay? Do you think Christians should be doing shots? Do you think that worship leaders should be doing shots? Do you think your pastor should be doing shots? Okay? Let me know in the chat. I'm just asking a genuine question. My thought, 100% no. You do shots because you want to get drunk. That's why I did them when I was in the world. We did shots because it helps you get drunk fast. It goes on. I have this vague memory that there was like a back room at a restaurant that he took Stephen to. That kind of stuff is really impressive to somebody who grew up as a poor missionary kid, especially with someone like Tait who you think you're safe with. Tommy Lee, bass guitarist for the band at this time, heard Stephen describe the relationship between Stephen and Tait. Stephen would go out on the road with us and he's like, yeah, I hung out with Michael Tait. And we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But it was kind of weird too, you know? I didn't know anything about Michael personally. I just assumed maybe Michael was just being a nice dude, like trying to help him out or something. But then he was hanging with him more and more, and I did think it was kind of weird at the time. By early 2011, Tait and Stephen had become fast friends, and Stephen didn't think twice when Tait invited to meet at his home in Brentwood, a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom mansion sold by Tait to his former Newsboys bandmate, Jeff Frankenstein, later that year. Stephen presumed he and Tait would meet there before going out to a bar, but Tait invited him in instead. Stephen told the Rose Report they sat in the kitchen and Tait offered him a drink. He was real hush-hush. I later found out that he had family living with him, and they were unaware that I was there. Guys, just pause really quick, okay? Look, if you're in these situations, and I will never blame a victim, okay? I won't. That doesn't mean that we can't look back and say, hey, here's where things got out of hand, or here's where you could have done this or that. Not blaming. It's like, let's learn, okay? Let's learn from the mistakes that have been made, or maybe you don't feel comfortable calling it a mistake that was made, okay? Let's learn, because sometimes it's not a mistake. It is an intentional grooming. And so it is meant to lull you into a place believing you're secure and safe, when in reality, they're just setting you up to prey on you. So maybe I will not call this a mistake, but let's learn from the grooming that's happening here, okay? If you're hanging out with a Christian leader or a pastor or whatever, I don't care who they are, I don't care how famous or popular they are. If they're doing anything sneaky, hush, hush, like, hey, just don't let anybody find, go away. Go away. Like, that is red flag number 1. Trying to keep things on the DL. Like, that is not godly. That should just set something off inside of you of like, man, something's up. Like, this just doesn't feel right. Why do they want me to be hush-hush? Why do they want me to be quiet? Why do they not want anyone to know we're texting so much, or whatever the case may be? I'm just telling you, and even outside of the Christian space, if you're like talking to a girl, or girls, you're talking to a guy, and he's like, yeah, I don't text, or I don't have social media, or I don't have whatever. Like, let's just talk on this app, and I don't want to be seen or whatever. Something's weird with that. They're either in a relationship or they're married or something like that. Like, people don't act that way. Okay. So whenever anyone is like that, that should set something off in your brain. I need to take a step back and figure out what's really going on, because the truth will set you free. This hush hush thing, you're going to see. It's going to lead on to something much worse. Stephen said Tait poured him highball glasses of Maker's Mark bourbon. He drank 3 with Tait egging him on, Stephen said. Yeah, real good, Christian behavior, let alone worship leader, let alone mentor or something. I mean, this is just, if the person that you're being mentored by or looking up to, if they lead you closer to sin and not closer to God, you should ditch that person and run away. Tait also reportedly drank alcohol heavily. Then, feeling sick from the alcohol consumption, Stephen vomited over the second-story balcony. Feeling dizzy, he went downstairs and lay down in the backyard. Tait followed him. Everything was spinning. After a short time, Stephen and Tait went back to the second floor, and Tait led him to the living area. I was super embarrassed because this dude's like my idol at the time, and I'm super out of it. I'm super sleepy, so he has me get on the couch, and he was like, I'll give you a foot massage. Right there. Time out. No. Heck no. I'm freaking out of here, dude. I'm going to call someone, come pick me up. Hey, I got myself in a bad situation. I got drunk. I should have never done this. I'm sorry. Rebuke me later. Just get me out of this situation, because this guy I'm drinking with just asked to give me a foot rub. That is gay behavior. This is not okay. And you got to recognize this right off the bat. But again, if you're super intoxicated, I mean, I've been that intoxicated before, and praise God, it's been a long time. I mean, I can't remember the last time I was drunk. It was 12 years ago or more, well over. Now, it was like 10 years ago. And when you start getting super sleepy, like, you don't have a long time before you're just going to pass out and like fall asleep. And Tait knew this, and so he took advantage of his victims. But if you have the means, like, call someone, let them know where you're at. Say, please come pick me up. I'm passing out. I don't want to be here. This is not good. Telling the Rose Report, this seemed kind of weird, Stephen said, and then he passed out. When he woke up around 4 a.m., so we don't know how long has passed, how many hours things have been happening to him. He woke up to Tait fondling his genitals and kissing his mouth. Saying that, he went into a freeze response and he didn't know what to do. He tried to pull away multiple times to stop Tait's behavior, but it didn't work. He started stirring and kept kissing me while touching my penis. Eventually, I just moved my head and he stopped, and then he kind of froze too. 15 years later, Stephen still remembers what time he left Tait's house because it was done in secrecy. I left before 6 a.m. I figured out that he had a family living with him. He needed to get me out the door before the kids started waking up for school. When Stephen arrived home that morning, he told Sly that he had slept over and Tait had given him a foot massage. He only told his girlfriend about what followed. Now, what I'm about to read to you is really disheartening. And we have to do better as a body of Christ and as men, frankly, with how we handle these situations, because you're going to see how his band handled it. And it's sad. Really, really sad. The Rose Report has viewed text messages between Stephen and his then girlfriend corroborating that they discussed the incident with Tait multiple times throughout their relationship before they broke up. 2 weeks later in the tour, Stephen told his bandmates about Tait giving him a foot massage, but refrained from sharing the rest of the details because he was embarrassed. I did not want to be excommunicated from Christian music. By his own admission, Sly says he didn't realize the severity of the incident, something he now deeply regrets. When Stephen told us originally about the Tait incident, we played it off like, oh, you're so gay, you probably brought this on yourself. Lee also remembers this conversation, but was not aware Stephen was also allegedly SA'd by Tait. He was in the van with us telling us this whole story, how he threw up, and then how Tait gave him a foot massage. I did think it was incredibly odd, but I didn't do anything at the time. Like Sly, Lee said he also didn't realize how negatively the incident had impacted Stephen. I had told other people about the story because I thought it was so hilarious at the time, Lee said. You've got his buddies telling all this stuff to everyone, and in reality, it's not even close to what actually took place and the horrors that this guy experienced. But he's having to relive it every time someone's making fun of him, and he's living in this place of isolation and shame. And unfortunately, there's a high percentage of people that end their own lives after becoming a victim of SA. And a lot of them blame themselves for what happened. And we hear this in victim testimonies all the time, as if they had some part to play in this, when in reality, they were preyed upon. The story about Tait's foot massage and fondling became an inside joke with the band, causing Stephen to turn inwards. But he stayed in contact with Tait, believing him to be his friend, calling him his idol. Stephen says Tait was basically at the top of the food chain. He could either help me get jobs or not. I didn't want to screw myself. The only time that I even approached the topic with Tait was about a week or two later. We went out to a bar in East Nashville. We were talking, and I was like, hey, man, I feel like I kind of need an apology. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what happened? He said, oh, yeah, sorry about that. And then brushed it off like it wasn't even a thought. And then he talks about how their contact began to dissipate, and he felt very violated. And it took another 2 years before his bandmates realized that he had been SA'd. A friend of mine who's in the industry said, hey, you know that thing with Tait and Stephen, that happened, right? It happened to another friend of mine. It's a real thing. It's serious. Sly spoke to Stephen and learned about the full details of the incident, including the non-consensual fondling of his genitals and kissing. Really, really horrific stuff. And really, Tait never apologized for any of this, but this isn't it. This isn't all he did. I want to read this one too, and then, we don't need to keep reading through all of these, but this one, this should set off red flags in anyone's mind, okay? Please hear me. If you ever find yourself in these situations, run away. This wasn't the first time Tait allegedly groomed a young male. 6 years earlier, the rock star swapped phone numbers with another worship musician named Philip, not his real name, at a gig in the Midwest. This time, he invited the 22-year-old to stay at his house. It was spring of 2004 when Philip first encountered Tait. Growing up in the Midwest in an Assemblies of God church, he joined a moderately successful worship band right out of college. Due to this, Philip and his peers spent time on the Christian tour circuit. It was through this that he met Tait, who had launched a solo career in 2001 under the band Tait. Tait and his drummer and housemate Chad Chapin were touring Tait's sophomore album Lose This Life when Tait met Philip's band at the merch booth at a show in Oklahoma. I just went up and said hi because I was a massive DC Talk fan, obviously given my upbringing. Tait was super nice. We chatted for a little while, and I brought up that I was working on my own music, and he was like, awesome, you got anything I can hear? And I was like, I do, but it's on my laptop in my hotel room. We did go up to my room, but he was just super supportive, listened to my songs, gave me encouragement, and that was it. Philip and Tait traded phone numbers after this encounter, and Philip saw it as a friendship and a mentoring relationship. Tait was 16 years his senior and could open a multitude of opportunities for Philip in Christian music. They texted casually over the next year, and Philip was excited when Tait invited him to Nashville for a weekend to hang out, stay at his place. This happened twice, and there they are. Philip lived 8 hours away and concedes now that the invitation was a bit unusual given the distance and age gap, but thought nothing of it at the time. I'm 22 and I had a lot of downtime when I'm not on the road. I'd probably do that for a regular friend, but a new friend that was in one of your favorite bands? Of course, I'm going to go hang out. I did that twice, and both hangs were pretty similar, just a bunch of bros drinking and playing darts and being silly. Nothing caused Philip concern during his first weekend at Tait's, so his guard was down the second time he visited in the winter of 2005. let me just say this too. This is by design. Very rarely will these guys show their cards, show their hand on the first time. They want you to feel safe. And so even in the Murad Muhammad case, you hear many of these victims say, the first night or the first week, he didn't do anything. He didn't touch me. Or he did like a little, he touched my back, or that was it. He asked me to sleep in the bed. I said no. He didn't argue. But as the time goes on, right, they're going to get into grooming mode and they're going to more aggressively go after these things. It's all a big setup, right? It's all a big setup. And that's what you're going to see here. He recalls there being a lot of beer and cigarettes while the group spent time together at Tait's place. Philip felt in control and was sober by choice. Man, bless that kid. This was a requirement in his religious upbringing and for his standing in the worship band he played for. Check that out. A worship band that says you've got to be sober. Dude, praise God. So many worship leaders love to drink, and they drink and drink and drink and drink. Not like they have one social beer because they love beers and they love craft beers. They love this or that. It's a problem. It's a problem for a lot of people. That's why I don't touch it at all. I haven't had a drop of alcohol since 2018, and I am grateful for that. And I'm not saying that in a proud way, like, look at me. I'm saying it only leads to destruction. There's no reason for it. Despite the difference, him not drinking, them drinking, Philip was accepted and felt comfortable among Tait's friends. He recalls that late into the night during the second stay, someone suggested they go skinny dipping in Tait's spa, which is, it's just weird. Like, who the heck? I have never been skinny dipping, and I would never go with a bunch of dudes. Like, that is just, again, I would never do that. I don't care who you are. I think it's weird. Everyone just starts shucking off their pants and jumping in. And I was like, oh, wow, they're actually doing it. I'm the new guy, and I'm not very shy about that stuff. So I did it too and hopped in. Peer pressure. Desire to want to fit in. Again, going with the masses. If everyone else is doing it, well, I mean, it must be normal. Everyone's doing it. And these are the lead, Christian musicians. This is the head guy in the Christian worship space right now. Like, why would I not do this? I guess this is normal. I guess it's fine. You explain it away. You rationalize it away. But when people started leaving, Tait became more intimate with Philip. The guy started peeling off relatively soon after that at some point. It may have just been me and Tait in there. And he started giving me a back rub. Right there. Gone. This type of behavior wasn't unfamiliar to Philip or the Christian music industry. According to multiple sources who have and currently tour in Christian music, this type of locker room behavior, often involving nudity, massage, beer, cigarettes, and in this case skinny dipping, has frequented Christian music spheres of influence for decades. I don't understand that paragraph at all. That is weird. It's disgusting. It's inappropriate. If that is normal in the Christian music space, then I want to be weird. If that's normal, I want to be weird. It should not be normal. Nudity, skinny dipping, smoking, drinking. This is not indicative of people who are hearts for the Lord, leading others into the presence of God. This sounds like wannabe celebrities. That's what it is. Andrew Welch, a former member of the Christian rock band Disciple, described this type of behavior as horseplay, stemming from boredom and being in close quarters. No, horseplay is like wrestling around, not getting naked. He told TRR that it was a way of bonding and didn't seem harmful at the time. While there are more reserved bands, this culture makes it normal for there to be naked bands on tour. While the Newsboys were not classified this way, Tait was known for wearing less clothes. Again, you're a Christian worship leader. Is that how you want to be known? Oh yeah, that guy doesn't like to wear a lot of clothes. Like, it's weird. Okay. As the normalcy of such behavior in Christian contemporary music, Philip was naive. According to his wife, whom he was dating at the time, Philip doesn't think anyone has nefarious intentions unless he has a reason to. He's like the most laid-back guy. So in 2005, when Philip was in a hot tub with Tait, he thought nothing of giving the rock star permission to massage him while they're naked. Looking back, Philip recognizes that this was obviously a little strange, that you're not wearing any clothes and you're in a hot tub, but that it was essentially fine. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I also wasn't in the mindset of, oh, he's hitting on me. I was just like, some guys are more touchy-feely than others, so that was that. I just have to imagine that, like, the influence of, being with a big celebrity maybe, is like causing these guys to make these decisions, because there are zero circumstances ever where I'd be naked in a hot tub with another guy, let alone allowing him to touch me in any way. I mean, if you're watching this, please, please don't ever get in a hot tub naked with other dudes. Just don't get naked in front of anyone who is not your spouse. Okay? Your nudity is reserved for your spouse. Okay? Or if you're literally getting changed in a locker room or something like that. But horseplay does not involve nudity. It's inappropriate, especially if you're going to be some type of Christian leader. So this stuff is just, I hate reading how this guy is preying on these young kids, but also like just an ounce of discernment. Or I love that he's got the sober mentality, and that's a rule in the band, but like there should also be this element of like, I'm not going to let a naked dude touch me. Period. I don't even know how this comes up, but Tait was basically saying my urethra is way bigger than normal size. It's like 2 or 3 times what it should be, and he just whips it out and shows me. That's another massively red flag right there. I would leave. Not long after they decided to go to bed, there were no spare rooms in Tait's house, so Philip had to share a room with Tait. His host offered him a sleeping bag beside the bed, but he also said he was welcome to share Tait's king-size bed. Philip thought nothing of it, something he attributes to life on the road, where it was common for him to share bunks with bandmates on tour to save money. At first, Philip said he took the sleeping bag, but he changed his mind to be comfortable. Tait made room for Philip, and they began to chit-chat as they fell asleep. That's when Tait began giving the 22-year-old another back rub, this time without consent. He starts giving me a back rub again. Again, this is so reminiscent to like the Murad Muhammad stuff. He's giving me another back rub. At this point, I start to get nervous. He's giving me a back rub for 3 to 4 minutes, and it's slowly getting lower. In the hot tub, he had stopped at my lower back, but he just kept going until he was massaging my butt cheeks. I'm laying there kind of frozen. It's a new friend, and you look up to him. I don't want to blow up our friendship. Can totally understand that. That's what many of the victims of Murad Muhammad said. Philip told the Roy's report he was unsure what to say to Tait because he didn't want to offend him or make him mad. However, Philip said after 30 seconds of him massaging his bottom, he put fingers in his anal region. And then Philip spoke up. Hey man, I'm not into that. That's not cool with me. Philip said Tait stopped, apologized, and turned over. He assumed that Tait was embarrassed and equated it to non-reciprocal romantic encounters with women from his own life. Considering this, he said he was not scared or afraid of Tait, and he fell asleep. When he woke up in the morning, Tait was gone, and Philip never heard from him again, despite reaching out multiple times over text. This is sickening, sickening behavior, and there's more. Guys, what's the point? There are predators among us. There are wolves in sheep's clothing. They are preying on those who will just give them a chance. And so I'm praying, 1, share this video. Help blast this to the world. This guy needs to be taken down, and I pray to God that the statute of limitations are not up yet, and he will face prison time. But number 2, we have to arm and equip the next generation to not fall victim to people like this. Please hear my voice and heed my warning. Heed this caution. Do not be impressed with people to the point that you will allow them to push your boundaries, especially regarding your sobriety and physical touch. Don't let anyone put hands on you. Just don't. Don't let anyone pressure you into drugs or alcohol. It's not worth it. And if you are a Christian who is living by this word, I pray that you go into every single room and you are immediately thinking, God, what's my purpose in this room? What do you have me here for? Speak to me. Help me know if there's something I need to avoid. Help me to speak up if there's something I need to say. If there's a person to witness to, show me, Father. If there's someone to flee from, show me, Father. Like when your mind is fixed on God, you will not be bamboozled or impressed or deceived or have the wool pulled over your eyes by someone masquerading as some worship leader when really all they are is someone who wants to touch you in inappropriate ways. This stuff has to stop, and I won't stop talking about it until these predators are out from our church, because they are the leaven that leavens the entire loaf. We have to get them out, and we have to do it now. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button if you enjoy this content, or, I shouldn't say enjoy. It's not a pleasure to do, but it is a pleasure to expose these guys because they're sick. I'm not on here talking about someone's bad theology. This is a criminal. This is an abuser. This is a predator, and he deserves to be outed in every possible way. And also make sure you subscribe. I do love preaching and teaching, sharing the gospel, evangelizing, but another thing I do is expose sexual predators within the church. And if you want to stay up to date on that kind of content, definitely subscribe to the channel. Again, please share this video to get this out. The story just broke yesterday on the Roy's Report. We are sharing it again today, hoping that we can save some young people from becoming victims themselves to some other worship leader, and I say that loosely. Hey guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.